Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blues Talk. We're again John, Dave, and myself. We're going to look back over last weekend's Heineken Cup matches, also Leinster's great win in the B&I Cup, and look forward to the Pro 12 matches in this weekend. So, boys, those two minor matches that were on at the weekend.
Yeah, there was no rugby on this weekend. No.
Good win for Sarries.
Good win for Sarries. A deserved win. They were the better side. Claremont, for all the romance about them, there is a mental culture of failure at that club.
There's something anyway.
It's ingrained in them now. It was just a matter of how they were going to lose it, not whether they were going to lose it. When it boils down to it, I mean, you look at the attitudes of the players. It doesn't. I mean, for top players like that, one upset shouldn't
throw them out of
shouldn't
kilter,
throw them completely out of
Just to show
kilter.
how
But it did.
important Rougier is to them. Like, he's just the complete leader within the team, and when he's not playing, I know they're on the wane, but not by 40 points against Sarries.
No, but when you look back to was it 2010 when we beat them in the quarter final? I still don't know how we beat them in that quarter final because they were well they were well ahead early on before I think it was Heaslip scored a try and we came back scored two tries quickly to get back into the game.
It was 10-0 then 2010 after.
Yeah. It just so they just seem to have this thing, this little. It's a head thing. It has to be a head thing.
Oh, it's not an ability thing. But then you see.
But you would say that they've been in the top 3 European clubs for the last 5 years, and all they've got to show for it is one top 14 and one loss in a Heineken Cup final.
Yeah, and but that's to a certain extent that's the history of Claremont is the history of falling short. I mean, no team has contested as many top 14 finals as them, and no team has lost as many top 14 finals as them. They've only won one. Same in the Heineken Cup, whether it was the ball bouncing off of Fana's bicep or
That's
the
luck, though,
the fact is, I mean, they conceded a bucket load of points after the second half. They weren't mentally after the
didn't score in the second half.
Yeah, they just weren't mentally switched on at all. Quarter final against us, and one of the key things is, I mean, for all that he's a lovely player to watch, Brock James is like his mental fortitude is like Swiss cheese. There just holds it all through it.
He goes to pieces very easy.
He goes to pieces. He's a Lego rugby player.
He's the one who lost him that quarter final against us for sure.
And the thing is, they've stuck with him all these years, despite the fact that they have.
It's amazing that just leads you to see how rare tens are in the French game.
They have a very good one sitting on the bench behind him in Mike Delaney. It's not like they don't have the talent in the club. They do,
or the money.
Because
they have the money, but it's part of it. Like Para is the man controlling things, and he's kind of fulfilling the control, the game. You know the way we always talk about game control, game management. He's doing the game management, not the 10.
There's a perfect example. If he's controlling the game, sure, the man can hardly control himself.
And they took him off.
But that's the truth. I mean, he can hardly control himself on occasion. He can be got at. Yeah, Para has been got at repeatedly, but the thing is, Saracens went out with a game plan. They stuck to it. I mean, it wasn't particularly flash, but it wasn't as turgid as some people thought it was going to be either.
I thought they played very well. They were very good value for the win.
Well.
And there was a real gutsy performance.
They
also threw the ball around.
And they made lots of line breaks.
They didn't throw the ball around.
Well, not
they passed the ball well to give themselves opportunities to create line breaks. Owen Farrell, the kicking out half, obviously who
wasn't
didn't kick,
kicking.
ran his back line very, very well. Chris Ashton was superb.
Yeah.
Strettle was very good. He didn't get the kudos by scoring the tries that Ashton did, but he played very, very well. Good is always class at fullback, always class. And then you turn to their pack, and they have some serious ball carriers in that pack. And Claremont just weren't able to live with either the mental or the physical intensity.
But they got no look at the green.
They didn't. No.
Even we'll have a quick look at a still from the penalty try and obviously the yellow card.
Well, the still doesn't show. Personally, I wouldn't have given it as a penalty try. I would have given it as a yellow card, certainly. I mean, it was a yellow card. We saw Tommy Bowe got a yellow card against the All Blacks. Do you remember in Croke Park for doing a not dissimilar thing? But was it a penalty try? I think no. But if you give the ref, we said it about Jared Payne, if you give the ref an opportunity to make the decision, at best you've only got a 50-50 chance. And if we look at this still from just the moment that Brock James taps the ball into touch, you'll see now there are actually 4 players in four Saracens players closer, what appears to be closer than any Claremont player, but the fourth, the one on the end line, is actually further away. It's just a perspective thing. But there are 3 players in close proximity to that ball.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it was a penalty try, but when you see the alignment of players like that, you can see why it was a penalty try, or why the possibility existed of there being a penalty try.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. It's like I said about Payne. You give the ref an opportunity to make a decision. Don't be surprised if the decision goes against you.
Yeah, well, they ran out of luck in the first half, but they needed a lot more. Like, even if Leinster were in the game, for example, and they were down by that amount and they'd had that stuff go against them, they'd come out swinging. They might not win the game, but
as we saw in Toulon, like, they did try and go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't just fall to pieces, which is it's a.
Well, this team is in serious need of transition. Like, well, there's a few lads are leaving. Obviously, Heinze's leaving.
Yeah.
Sivatu,
Fern
Cotter's
Cotter,
going
most
too. But maybe that's not a
importantly,
bad thing for them. They need a whole.
Well,
they
that's
need to clean house.
That's a group that's been together, in the main, for maybe 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, and Cotter's there a long time.
And Cotter's been there for most of that. So maybe we've often said, as a coach, you've only got a certain shelf life before fellas start getting bored listening to
Well,
you.
that's what Cheika said. Like, 5 years is definitely the max.
Declan Kidney found that. Eddie O'Sullivan found it. Joe Schmidt managed to get out of the Leinster job just in time before, maybe diminishing marginal returns set in. You've only got a certain amount of time. And Vern Cotter's been there a very long time, and in fairness, he's a superb coach. But you'd have to question the mental conditioning of the players.
Well, we'll see how he does with Scotland, especially with that other.
Well, he's working
lads.
from a blank slate there, so he is in
that's
terms
true.
of mental conditioning.
But he's been there. Has he been there since they won the Amlin back in 08 or whenever it was? Yeah, that's an awful long time to be a coach. And they, people talk about Toulon, but they pretty much bought their team way back. They developed a culture again, like Toulon have done. They've developed a culture. From a group of players that were just kind of thrown together with a load of money. Claremont did it as well, but they did it several years earlier, so their team was,
They were less brash about it.
Yeah, they were less brash about it, and we've also forgotten all the players that they spent all that money on. I mean, that team that won the Amlin was really star-studded, and don't ask me to name the players because a few years ago, but there were some big names in that team that won the Amlin, and they've since left Claremont, but Claremont have an ethos, just not an ethos that's going to win them any trophies anytime soon. They still had Joe Schmidt when they won the Brennus in 2010.
Every team goes through transition. We're in the middle of it. Munster have been through it. Ulster, I think, are going to go into it maybe next year after. Toulouse are in it. It happens to every team. Question is how they handle it, how they maintain.
And how long that trough lasts.
Well, the question is keeping the trough as shallow as possible.
Yeah.
Leicester are in it as well, you could say.
So every team goes through it. It's a pity that the team never won anything, because they're a club I like. The supporters obviously are very popular with Leicester supporters. They're a nice team. They play nice rugby.
Well, we've shared a lot of our big days with them.
We've shared a lot of big days with them. And the thing is, one of the reasons why we like them so much is because we generally came out on top of those big days.
But look at what they did, for example, last year in the pool games.
Yeah.
They blew people away. They weren't knockout games. They weren't do or die. They were throw the ball around and look spectacular.
They did beat Sarries last season in the semi.
They did, but Sarries were not the team they are this year.
Last season?
Yeah.
Did they not beat Munster in the semi?
Was it 2 years ago? It was a quarter they beat Sarries in.
Quarter.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So just to go back to that, back to Munster. Claremont came into that game against Munster on top of the ground, playing incredible rugby, and between the opening whistle of that match and the final whistle of the final, you could actually see their season go like
graph,
that.
Yeah,
you could see it just dissipate because they got up, they started really well against Munster, and then the demons in their head started, and they just. It was just a slow collapse all the way through, right to the end of the final.
I suppose you could say they were being found out. Like, they weren't found out in Sarries. Sarries didn't have the wherewithal to find them out. But, we played Sarries in 2010, which is admittedly 4 years ago now. Although it's not quite, it was October 2010, I think. But they weren't half the team they are now either. Like they really, really.
Owen Farrell was only a
Come
kid.
on.
He was only about 18. Like
Yeah, he was-
he's 4 years older. He's been on the Lions tour. He's got
Yeah.
I
England
like him as a
starter now.
player. I have to say, I think he's, okay, he's not as attractive. He kind of suits their style, I suppose, but he's really tough for a kid. Like I know he's not quite a kid anymore, but even when he was a teenager, he was really tough.
Mentally tough.
Exactly, and
He's
he's got that dedication.
He's his father's son. There's no question of that in terms of his attitude. Anyway,
He's got that dedication that means he's going to improve. He's going to maximize what talent he has. You know, he doesn't have Carlos Spencer type talent. He's got more Johnny Wilkinson type talent, and he's going to maximize that. You can be sure. You know, and he's going to work on his kicking the way Johnny Wilkinson did, and he's already a phenomenal kicker from all kinds of angles and distances. You know, so.
But like Sarries have been very lucky. I mean, they were beaten in their two big
They
games
were.
in the pool against Toulon or against Toulouse. They obviously had
Very
Zebre
lucky.
and Connacht in the other two teams in their pool.
And you notice how they cleaned? Sorry for interrupting you. You notice how they cleaned up against Connacht at home, where Connacht showed a bit of weakness and a bit of naivety in defence, and they just cleaned them up. Same really with Claremont. I mean, okay, they had to put a lot more effort into Claremont, but they cleaned them
Quite
up.
ruthless, yeah.
Yeah, they were very
It's
very
got
ruthless
6
kind of a
tries, you know,
team.
like any team that scores 6 tries in a
Against
it
Claremont.
doesn't matter
Semi-final. Yeah.
what the standard of the regardless of what level of a match is. If you put 6 tries
But
in
they
your opposition,
banged
you
in
know,
9 or
Well,
10 against Connacht. You
putting
know,
6 tries against Claremont in a Heineken Cup semi-final, despite all that we've said about Claremont, doing it against that name is just
Yeah.
it's an extraordinary
It's very
performance.
impressive.
Yeah,
well, sorry, Jason, I cut in across you. Were just saying about how
No,
they had Zebre and Connacht.
they had those two teams in their pool, and obviously they had Ulster, and I know Ulster were very unfortunate with the pain thing, and then but even like Ulster must have had, I don't know, 5 minutes of more or less 100% possession in the last few minutes, and they still didn't have the cojones to take that drop
Yeah.
goal, but they eked out that victory against Ulster, and they happened to play Claremont, who are by far and away the weakest Claremont team that we've seen in the last 5
Or
years.
at their weakest
Or
point.
At their weakest point. And they managed to get to the final. I'm just saying that they have a lot of luck going for them this
they have a
season.
look, but it's like that old Napoleon thing. Bring me a lucky general.
Yeah,
you know.
it's true.
Or the one about Brian O'Driscoll, the luckiest ones are the ones who train the hardest.
Yeah, you do need a dollop of luck. I mean, we've had luck a lot
Yeah.
along the way in our Heineken Cup triumphs. Munster have had it as well. Every team that puts something together in terms of winning a
Oh,
tournament
you need a bit of
has a
bounce of
huge
the ball,
dollop
yeah.
of luck in there.
Yeah.
So, fair play to them. They are still, as far as I'm concerned, the pariah club of Europe. Their ownership is loathsome, absolutely loathsome.
Yeah.
Well, they were having a go like at the ERC for,
That's
not
right,
being
yeah.
able to sell. Like there was 25,000 in Wembley. Like the lower deck wasn't even full. It was so disappointing to see the middle and the upper decks completely empty.
But sure,
When
they-
you think back 5 years ago to our semi-final against Munster, 80-odd thousand people in Grove Park, and just the colour, the red and the blue check, and it just was magnificent. And to see this great tournament turn into
but
Yeah, but they're going to
Saracens-
blame. That's the sad thing. They're going to blame the ERC
They
for
want
that,
to give
and
away
they already
tickets for a
have.
fiver, you know?
But
Yeah.
the final is coming up, and it's between the two teams who are going to have the least travelling fans. And there's going to be there's already a lot of people trying to shift tickets, and there's going to be a lot of empty seats at that, and they are going to blame the ERC for that. I bet you. Nigel Ray comes
Saracens
out.
are never going to attract neutral fans. If I were to set up a let's all have a we hate Saracens meeting, I'd get more neutrals at it than Saracens would to a rugby match because they're despised. They're not only despised throughout Europe, they're despised. in
Why
England.
though, Dave? Why?
They're the pariah club of England. I don't think it's because they've signed.
But they were the glitzy club 20 years ago, signing like the Liners
Yeah.
and Pinars and
Maybe that's part
Richie
of why.
Wallace.
No, I think it's more their carry on in recent
And
years.
Paul.
I think they're loathsome. Their organisation is loathsome.
Well, even remember a couple of years ago against Munster, they started playing the
Yeah,
PA
it's stuff like
system.
that. I mean, they
Well,
have
these
no-
are the bad things about them, But
But you see, that's the thing. If a club with an average attendance of maybe 9,000 isn't going to fill Twickenham without attracting a lot of neutrals. If
Yeah.
you're the scum of the earth, you're not going to attract neutrals. And as far as rugby's concerned, Saracens are the scum of the earth. I have more time for apartheid era Springbok teams than I have for Saracens management.
You just
It's
want to
as
see
simple as
Tiny
that.
Templar again. Anyway,
That's the entire high point of their entire club's existence
I'm on a
was
mission.
booking Tiny Templar.
I'm on a mission to discover why they are so hated. I mean, you've mentioned most of the things that everybody mentions: the the PA. The right said Fred.
though.
The right said Fred. The what's his name? Nigel Ray and what's the other lad? Edwards.
Yeah.
At the top of the, of course they're
Brendan
lots.
Venter's another good reason.
Yeah, there you go. But
He's
they've got
good,
Mark
yes,
McCall.
Yes, good, very good. Yes, he's very
Mark
good.
McCall,
Yeah.
good Ulsterman.
Well, he's
And they're-
reinvented himself when you think, like, he kind of left Ulster in a bit of
Yeah.
a shadow,
They've
and
got-
then he went to Cast. It didn't work out from there.
They've got a lot of very good players, and not all high-profile South African signings like the Myth. They've got
the
young
problem-
guys coming through.
the
They've got a
problem
decent
isn't-
academy.
The
They
problem
do
isn't
a
the
fair
team.
bit for their clubs in their region.
Yeah, but
or,
that's irrelevant. It's irrelevant because they're doing it for
And
Saracens.
I'm only being a devil's advocate here,
No, but
lads.
they're doing it for Saracens. So, I mean, the devil can cite scripture to his own purpose. I mean, it doesn't matter how good all these guys are. I'm sure they're great guys, and I've no doubt they are, because you see them in Lions, you see them in Lions DVDs, and I mean, they're nice guys. They get along well with they mix well. The stuff you want of a good club man. But the fact of the matter is that they work for these
Poison
two.
at the top.
These two toxic twins. So they do. They work for, this blight on the European game.
Even examining that one, right? Nigel Ray is a very rich man, and it's very easy to be a bit of a KNOB if you're a very rich man. It's harder to be a nice. It's easy to be a nice guy when you've nothing and you're with your mates down the pub. But leaving that aside, he's been putting money into the club since '96, since the dawn of professionalism, and he's still there. So it's not like he's kind of come up, thrown a lot of money in and then walked away. I mean, he must be a bit of a rugby fan.
I've no doubt. I've no doubt that he's a fan of whatever
Again,
he
I'm
thinks
being devil's
rugby-
advocate here. I'm not saying he's a
There's
wonderful
there's
human
no way
being.
he'd stick with the club and put in the money he puts into it if he wasn't a fan of whatever it is he thinks rugby is. The problem is what he thinks rugby is. He has what everyone in Ireland, most of the people in England, most of the people in Scotland, most of the people in France, Italy, God only knows what they think in Wales, but
They probably love him.
whatever he thinks rugby is not what everybody else thinks rugby is. And he is determined to enforce his bitter, sick view of the game on the rest of us. And I really hope that Saracens get a beating to end all beatings.
Dave, I'm going to have to get you off the fence now, because you're just...
Time to move on.
Yeah, you're too neutral there. Anyway, so Toulon beat Munster. I thought a very spirited performance by Munster.
That was probably
Yeah.
the best Munster. I mean, they made a lot of mistakes, but it wasn't through lack of effort. I mean, they really put in
definitely
the
not.
effort.
Yeah.
Most of their players played exceptionally well. Probably put in some of their best performances in red jersey, blue jersey, whatever, in the red jersey for Munster. But Toulon just have that extra bit of quality.
Yes.
That just was too much for them.
But I thought Munster just shot themselves in the foot. Like, they were getting the ball behind the gain line. They weren't making any yards. They were static. It reminded me of Ireland under Declan Kidney in the latter
Yeah,
stages.
but that's kind of their game.
When they they got up, they got a penalty. Toulon kicked off. They knocked it on.
Their kickoff
There was,
receipts were
absolutely
bad. Yeah.
appalling. Like, and
They
they did
kept
that a
going-
couple of times.
they
They gave
kept-
away a penalty straight off the kick. Like, that's
Yeah.
the first thing you learn when you're under 12. Don't concede it.
They kept going wide,
And
Very-
not making ground.
and not making ground because they were going wide from deep. But it was all lateral stuff, and the passing was poor.
But also, you had Bastereau was shooting up a lot,
Yeah.
and he was creasing guys like Earls, and they couldn't get the ball out to the problem has always been they don't have the centres to they've got Zebo and Earls on the wings, two swift enough guys who are they're not maybe Drew Mitchell and but they're pretty bloody good.
Yeah.
And if they had a decent centre partnership that could A,
Put
punch
them
a
into
hole,
space.
or B, put them into space,
the other problem they
it
have
might
is
have been a different game.
it rarely happens that Simon Zebo and Keith Earls come up against a pair of wingers or a trifecta of wingers in this case that are actually probably quicker than them. In terms of Drew Mitchell, Brian Habana and David Smith, those guys are serious burners. So Munster's tactic of trying to get Zebo into a position where he could get on the outside of a guy wasn't really going to work because the guy had the pace to recover. And Toulon had done their homework very, very well. Realised that Munster were a little bit slow in the midfield in terms of the skills.
Yeah.
And they were, like you said, they were shooting Bastereau up, putting even more pressure on those, and the knock-ons were coming and the handling errors were coming. I mean, you look at the back row. I'm not sure whether it was a good idea or whatever to pick Dougal, but it worked. And Stander has really come into his own last couple of games.
Yeah.
Lot of talk about James Collin making a block down, and that was very good. I don't think he was that great. He was certainly
He did
functional.
do a knock on there on the 22
He was,
from
he
a
was very
kickoff that
functional, and
wasn't
to a
great.
certain extent, if you've got chargers like Stander and Dougal,
Yeah.
what you want is your number 8 to be the guy that's kind of holding everything together without being flash and stuff like that. So I thought he did okay.
I think Dougal was put on for 40, 50 minutes
Yeah.
to just try and
Try
mess
and-
the breakdown up.
Yeah,
like,
try and negate the influence of Armitage and Bastro at the
exactly.
breakdown. And to a certain extent, he did.
surprisingly.
Yeah,
For a guy who Ulster were basically releasing.
but the one advantage he has is he is an out and out groundhog. I mean, that's his game. So it actually worked out very well for him. Toulon played, I wouldn't say within themselves, but they certainly played a very controlled game. I mean, the difference, I said it before, I mean, ironically, I think it would have suited Leinster better if Johnny Wilkinson stayed on the pitch against us.
Of course.
And I think we saw why, because he does play a very controlled, very structured game, whereas Matt Gitto at out half tends to cut loose. Toulon
And he did. On us.
And on us, he didn't play there against Munster, so Toulon didn't really cut loose. But what Toulon did is they just kept grinding and grinding and grinding. And the key thing was when Lobby got his yellow card, they won
scored
the
a
10
penalty,
minutes. They won the 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So
But like, I suppose
When I saw that actually happening, when I saw it, I said, "Look, they've scored a penalty with 14 men on the field, and they've, you know,
it's psychologically damaging. But I thought when they had the opportunity that I think they got it within 5 points. They'd have taken. They had an option to go down
They
the
went to
line,
the corner, yeah.
and they had.
Yeah.
Now, I always will firmly believe that you've got to
Everybody's-
take your points,
Yeah.
because if you take your points in that particular, like Munster didn't look like breaking them down. Okay, I know that they scored, but they scored in a. They weren't looking like they were going to do it consistently. They did it off a nice little break by Murray, and then Zebo did very well to get the ball down.
Toulon had the measure of their maul a bit.
But if they had have taken those points, they still had about 7 minutes, and they
Yeah.
were in 2 points.
All they
had to do-
just eke it out and get another
because
pen.
they didn't even need it. I mean, Keighley has a big boot in him.
Yeah,
and
he had a great game.
and has kicked some very long range drop goals in the past. So all they had to do was I agree with you completely. All they had to do was get up into somewhere around the 22 ish, and they had an opportunity. But I also agree with you. I think that Munster were a bit wary of Toulon's power. I mean, they didn't use it all that often. And even the try they scored, was from a maul that had been stopped.
Yeah.
So I think they were a bit. It was a very tough decision to make.
I think, I'd kind of give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. Well, benefit of the doubt's the wrong word.
He's
Hindsight.
a hero if you had a made.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, like, they were giving it a whirl. Their maul is a very big part of their armoury. Like,
It hadn't worked consistently.
It
in the
hadn't
game.
worked in the game. But, what else have they got? Okay, they could have gone for that. But they're throwing the dice by going for the corner. Of course they are. But if it had worked out, we would have been all patting them on the heads. Geez, they had the balls to go for the corner, and aren't they great? It didn't work out, so we're all going,
I appreciate
they're
that,
Egypts.
but their pack isn't as good, anywhere near as good as it was in 06 or 08, and they can't dominate
But
a team of.
look what they did to Ulster, and lots of teams, okay, in the Rabo, and they're not going to do, obviously, they did to Toulouse as well, didn't they? Maul them a few
the
times.
worst team
Yeah.
that Toulouse have fielded in 20 years.
Okay.
You see, the thing is,
Well, I think that Toulon put in a lot of work on Maul defence, specifically for that game.
Toulon would have wanted Munster to take to go for the corner. Toulon would have been delighted with that decision.
Of course.
It to a certain extent, it reminds me of when we played Claremont over in Claremont 2 years ago, and Johnny went for the points. And we kind of everyone was saying go for the corner, but he went for the points. Going for the points was the right decision. Unfortunately, he missed.
Yeah.
But there was debate afterwards for weeks because hindsight is 2020. I would have gone for the points. I would agree. I'm sorry, I keep agreeing with Jason this week.
fine.
I agree with you. I would have gone for the points because I think that Munster would have been able to set up a situation. They have that big game intelligence. They have enough players with that big game intelligence to be able to create an opportunity for Keighley, whether from a penalty or a field goal, to get those extra points.
Well, that's the word I used, was a manky drop goal.
Yeah.
And I was asked what a manky drop goal was, what made it, and I said one that wobbles and just about goes over the bar. They could have got down for a manky
One
drop
that
goal.
has a huge element of what Bill McLaren used to call sclarf in it.
There you
But
go.
I think they could. But I think that Toulon very successfully held them at arm's length, and I think that's what Toulon wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I have to say, like, we've been very critical of Zebo, and he's.
Oh, he really answered his critics, didn't
But
he?
he had a very good
I thought he had a very good
Scored
game.
a try
and you have to
and
admire
saved one.
somebody that can pull it out in a big game like that, and really, like, he scored a try, I think he was one of the joint top tacklers with 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And he also made a fantastic try saving.
Yeah,
tackle.
I think I mean Zebo's form meant that Toulon sent an awful lot of runners down his channel, because let's be honest, he has been poor this season,
Yeah.
and so Toulon decided to target him. And in fairness to him, he stood up and stemmed the red wave, as it were. I mean, obviously his try saving tackle was just incredible. I mean, it was absolutely superb.
I thought that was a try.
Also,
Yeah.
right.
I thought
I
it was,
saw the
it was nailed
replay.
on, and then you just see the tackle just gets the guy's foot in touch, and it was absolutely superb. So he's done that now. It was absolutely superb. I thought Keith Earls was underutilized though. I think they could have used him more. I think
Again, they didn't get the chance to have the ball.
We said it last
And
week.
when he did get the ball in his hands, like they didn't quite do the putting the second row on the wing thing that they were doing last year. But when he got the ball in his hands, he got Bastro in his face or somebody like him in his face. Like their line speed, they were up really fast. So if he got the ball, it was on the end of a very long pass, or it was, he wasn't getting the ball in
he
any
was getting
space
very sloppy
at
ball.
all.
And
I think there's an element to Rob Penny's thinking, in terms of, playing a wide game. He thinks that, right, I want to play a wide game. That means the ball goes from the out half to the first centre to the second centre to the winger, right? You've got a winger like Keith Earls who is blindingly quick, but also has incredibly fast feet. Why do you
What
have
about
to
a winger like Donnchadh Callahan?
Yeah, but why keep him out in the wing? Why
Yeah.
not use him in the 10-12 channel, the
his best
12-13
play is
channel?
from broken play.
Yeah,
And when he gets into space in broken play, he's absolutely lethal. And
Oh,
he's
yeah.
so blisteringly fast.
Yeah.
But any ball he was getting, but he was getting poor ball because their 10, 12, 13 were dominated
Mhm.
by the Toulon
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah, they were up in their face the whole time.
they had a shooter and they were drifting, and like every time he got the ball, it was slow ball. It was generally coming behind him, and he had their 10, 12 and 14 up in his face. It was
No more than we
I,
did
I, would,
ourselves.
I would have used him off 10 and off 12 rather than trying to be orthodox about it.
Well,
Because I'd like to see how Bastro would have reacted to Earls kind of just stepping off him,
yeah.
instead of
If he
just
had
an
space to
orthodox-
do it,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I suppose the big game of the weekend was over in Pontypridd,
Stratus Road.
where,
Where we didn't actually win, as you said in the introduction.
yeah.
We drew.
Oh, sorry, well, we won the game, but we drew the
We
match.
won the tie.
Yeah, so 22. We scored 3 tries and we got through on countback. Looked like a great atmosphere. There was 5,000
Yeah.
at the match, and it was back to the old days of when Pontypridd were one of the best teams in Wales.
And Martin Williams used to play for them.
Martin Wales.
And he was commentating on the Radio Wales commentary that I was listening to it on, and I just remember thinking,
And
it's
Jenks.
lucky it's not going to penalties after his. What was he going to say?
Well, I mean,
But which is a worse way to lose it? Martin Williams missing the penalty, or the fact that you didn't score more tries?
well,
you know?
I remember us losing. I think it was a Celtic Cup semi-final to Ulster on countback up in Ravenhill years ago. It was 2002, 2003 or something. So it's
I
nice
think they
to
won it in Edinburgh or something that year.
it's nice to win one. So I mean, all credit in this game has to go to Pontypridd. I mean, they're a club of semi-professionals against a team of professionals, and some of them very highly thought of professionals in terms of the likes of
Dominic
Noel
Ryan.
Reid was playing there, Hudson was playing there,
Mackin.
Brendan Mackin, Dominic Ryan, a lot of our forwards, and they put it up to them for 100 minutes. I mean, I mean,
And that was the thing. It was a funny game though, because
you'd expect the Leinster A's players' fitness to kick in once the game went
well,
over
that
the
was
80.
that
But
was
there
one
no
of the
score
funny
in
things
extra
about
time
it.
at all.
That was one of the funny
I
things about
suppose
it.
the only thing was that we did score a try in the last minute of
Yeah.
proper time. You know what I mean? Where
Well,
maybe their fitness levels were trying to wane.
Possibly.
a little
Well,
bit.
The game did go on a little bit longer
that's
than
not
that.
the first time that we've done that. We scored late tries in the British and Irish Cup last season as well against Newcastle, if you
That's
recall.
right, yeah.
Well, the game did, but there was no stop clock, so it's hard to know what the. But the ref was keeping
They
his
actually
own
got a
time.
penalty on the halfway line
They just
to
fell
finish
short.
the game that just fell short. But there's a few funny things about it. One is the fact that they lasted so well. Like a bunch of semi-pro lads. I think we said it here last week. They'll be down the pub a few nights of the week and they have to go back to their jobs on Monday and all of this stuff. You would have expected, like, it was the classic clash between young, fit and inexperienced and older and less fit, but shed loads of experience. The other funny thing about it, I thought, listening to it on the radio, was that Leinster dominated the first half against the wind, and Pontypridd dominated the second half against the wind, and against the fact that they had to do a lot of tackling in the first half, and they're semi-pro guys. So
But they were playing for their village, or their town.
absolutely, and they had
5,000.
whatever amount of people supporting them, 3,000 anyway. The place was packed out, but given even the fact that they're playing for their village, and they still had to last against a bunch of professional and very, very highly fit and highly trained guys. And the pack we had out, there's a lot of big guys in that pack. The back five of that pack were they're brutes.
Yeah,
you know.
But there's a lot of experience in
From the highlights I saw, they were carrying pretty hard as well. Some of them. But
I thought Quinn Rue looked again. I just saw 20 minutes of highlights, but I thought Quinn Rue had a fine game.
Denton and Rue seemed to be at the end of a lot, and like you said, carrying hard into contact. They seem to be bursting in through guys, which that's got to tire you out, especially if you're a guy who's an electrician during the week, or that has got to, and you've got to admire their spirit and the way they stuck in, and feel very sorry for them the way that they could have had a big final against Bristol, which is a bit of a local derby there as well.
I think they should be proud of themselves. Well, it's a local derby for us as well. if it's Bristol in the final.
Is it?
The charter for the city of Dublin in 988 was
Okay.
awarded to the merchant men of Bristol.
Okay.
Dublin is technically a suburb of Bristol. So there's a little
That's
bit
very technical, Dave.
yeah.
Well, there's two young Irish lads or Leinster lads heading over to Bristol
That's
at
right.
the start of
Yeah.
next season. So
The last game for Leinster could be against their future employer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's presuming, of course,
Yeah.
Bristol beat
So
Leeds, but I don't think there's much.
so that
Bristol are beating Leeds unless they rest their whole team.
that match is going to be in Donnybrook on the 23rd of May, so it'll be
Yeah.
at least something for
Nice day out.
Nice day out.
That'd be a lovely day out,
Heineken
yeah.
Cup weekend.
Might wear our shorts.
So anyway, we move on to the penultimate round of the Pro 12. So we've obviously got a very big game up in Ravenhill.
Oh yeah.
And I think Ulster are very like Claremont at this stage. Maybe haven't quite gone over the hill yet, but there's quite a few of their team are leaving.
I don't think they've.
Foa,
Be a
Muller.
sting in their tail,
I
I'd
don't
say,
think they've
this
gone
week.
over the hill in
Well, they
terms
have to do something, Dave. Like
in terms of age. I think
Yeah.
mentally they're certainly approaching it, because they've been close and they've been there or thereabouts, and they've come away with nothing. And now that team is breaking up this year,
Ulster fans would be the first to tell you that this is the season they had to win something.
they had to win something. They have to win something this year, otherwise it's back to the drawing board. I think.
Yeah, well, if you think back at their Heineken Cup matches over the last few years, they were beaten in a quarter-final against Aries last year, got beaten in the final by us, beaten by Northampton Saints the previous year, beaten in the Pro 12 final by us again.
And that's 4 seasons after having no knockout rugby for I think 10 seasons after they won the Heineken Cup. They literally had.
But also, and the investment that's gone into the club,
Yeah.
to get them up to that level, but they haven't managed to make the transition from being, nearly
They
men
haven't.
to.
They haven't quite pushed on. I mean, that's what I said. I said at the beginning of last season actually that this was the key year for Ulster.
Yeah.
That they had to do. I thought Ulster were a coming team, and but they had to win something that year. They didn't, and they got beaten, as you say, in the Pro 12 final. They got beaten in Europe, obviously. So the question is this 1 year too many? Well, we won't know even after this match. But you'd kind of have to question if they don't win it this year. I think that they have to go back and look at what they're doing and start and come up with another way of doing it.
Well, Anscombe has another year in his contract,
Yeah.
so they'll be looking to next year will be a kind of transition year for coach wise, because I don't think he'll be going again after that. It'll be his third year, but they're also hit a bit by injury, but maybe not quite as bad as we think. There's an outside chance they'll have a Foa back. They looks like they'll have Lutton, Callum Black and Tom Court, so they'll at least have 3 top line props. Maybe not a Foa. If they have him, they'll have a fourth. How fit he'll be, don't know. Ferris is out. Robbie Dyack is out, so they're getting a little thin. They're going to be very thin on the bench like they were against Glasgow. They've got. They might have to swap Henry over to the 6 and put
Sean
Doyle on at 7.
I don't think an awful lot
Then
of
they're left with McComish on the bench, They really are down to now. They'll have a decent second row, Muller and Henderson, and probably Stevenson or somebody on the bench. I don't think Tui is going to make it, but I'm not sure. I think they're keeping it all under wraps this week, big time. They're not making too many. They've announced that Black is fit, and they've kind of gone on the rest of them.
No, we know one. I think their press days Thursday and
Pienaar and
Friday.
Best are out for sure, and they're their biggest losses, really. In fairness,
Pienaar's a huge loss.
But
and Best is a huge loss. They're both. I mean, those are the two.
But this is make
leaders of the team.
This potentially this match could make a break.
This is make or break
if
for them.
If they lose this game,
they have to go to Thomond and win.
Yeah, and Ospreys are creeping up in the background, and they've got much easier running. They've got, I think, Zebre this weekend, and then they've got Connacht at home as their last two games. Only 5 points behind Ulster. So, this could, I'd love to see all three Irish teams in the last four, but it could be potential that Ulster might drop out of that.
The interesting thing is, you say about that obviously they have the game against us, and then they have to go to. Where are Munster playing this weekend?
Edinburgh.
In Edinburgh. Now the thing about Munster is traditionally after they've fallen out of Europe, they've tended to fall off domestically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I don't think that they will this year, because in fairness to Rob Penny, he's always managed to keep them fairly focused outside of Europe, which is more than some previous coaches have done. And they have that game in Edinburgh now. It's in Megatland, which won't be a nice place to go. It won't be a nice pitch or whatever, but at least it's not the hardest game. It'd be different if they were going over to Glasgow, for example. And that would put the kibosh on them. So they have a nice soft run against Edinburgh, if you like, before Ulster go down.
We're swapping teams. Like, we've got Ulster away, they've got Edinburgh away, and then we've got.
But before they go down, before Ulster arrive to Thomond Park, they'll have had a loosener, shall we say, against Edinburgh. So that'll work against Ulster as well. That the fixture before the fixture that they play Munster in works against them.
Yeah.
So it's very, very tough for them. I mean, they do really have to take at least 4 match points out of this game.
They kind of do, yeah. But we're going to hope that they don't. We're going to hope to take one.
Yeah. We're going to have to take none.
We want to see them do somewhat well.
But you've got the other side of the coin, like in Ulster's favour. You've got some of their players that were probably say Irish fringe players. I'm talking the likes of Luke Marshall, Craig Gilroy.
Their backline is unaffected, bar Pienaar.
But they might have something to prove against the current incumbents on the Irish team. Like the Marshall might be the next to replace Darcy in latter years, and Henderson the same, or he might feel he should be on the Irish team ahead of Toner, or there's a few other lads as I mentioned. So they're pretty much playing for an opportunity to try and leapfrog some of the guys in the Irish squad. Yeah,
well, their second row is fine. Their back line is totally fine. It's scrum half, front row and back row is where they're really hit badly with their injuries, and obviously the bench in general. And
Paul Marshall has his attributes, but Ulster have always suffered when Pienaar's not there.
Well, prospering off slow ball is not one of Marshall's skills, unfortunately.
They've always suffered when Pienaar's not there, and the double whammy, the double leadership absence whammy of him not being there, and the other guy who takes control of games for them, Best, not been there. It's huge. I mean, Muller is the captain, but the real leaders are Pienaar and Best.
Oh, I think Muller is.
No, he's a fine player. I'm not dismissing him at all.
Fair leader.
You look at the spine of that team, and it is those three.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's 2 of them gone.
And 2 of them are gone.
I think we have to go up there though and put them to the sword because I think I might have said this last week, but just because of the fact that they're a little bit weak, and if we go up there and lose, it's not very good for our mentality, because apart from, I think Redden might be out, Fitzgerald we don't know, but then again, do we ever know in a week of a game? We were also
Richie
missing
Murphy kind of hinted he could be back.
He'll be playing.
Well, McFadden's certainly out.
Yeah.
McFadden and O'Brien are out.
A promising reports of O'Brien that he is ahead of schedule.
If we'd have matched last weekend, Sean O'Brien would have been available for it. I mean, there's no question that he would have played.
I doubt they're going to rush him back before the end of the regular season.
No, but I'd say he'd be available for the playoffs.
You don't?
I would say he'd be available.
I think he might
for
be.
the
Yeah, I think he might.
I mean, if we were 5th and needed a win up there,
you reckon he might be there?
I reckon it'd be very hard to stop him himself, and I think that tactically he might be back, but we don't need him until the playoffs. So I don't think we'll see him until then, but I do think we will see him then.
Well, if you look at our team though, I've just gone through the Ulster one. If you look at our team, we've got quite a lot of players that you wouldn't mind seeing either starting or on the bench. Cronin and Strauss. I'd even say at this stage Boss and McGrath, if Redden is out. McGrath is looking. He played
a very good game
in the B&I Cup.
Marty Moore and
Mike Ross, Keane Healy and Jack McGrath. Like, that is an awful lot of strength that you can have guys. Like, if you put any combination of any of them starting and any combination of any of them on the bench, I'd be quite happy. Like, that is, if we're going to win this one this weekend, that's what's going to do it for us. Being able to bring guys like that on when they've got putting their hands in their pocket and coming up with nothing, you know. So if we go up with that strength of a team and don't take them out of it when they don't have quite a full team, if we meet them again in the playoffs, even if it's in the RDS, you know, like the fact that 1 point is going to get us out of this in terms of the league is one side of it, but the mental damage that will be done by losing to a not full strength Ulster team, even though it's in
I'd always fancy us in knockout rugby against Ulster.
Well, we've got a very good record up there. We've only been beaten twice out of 9 games.
9 games, yeah, but you know they've all been very recent.
Well, they did the double on us last season
year,
in the regular season.
That's the first time this millennium they've beaten us outside of Ravenhill. They didn't beat us in Twickenham, and they have never beaten us in Dublin since '99 until last season. So, you know, let's keep it that way.
Yeah. So anyway, looking at some of the other fixtures, we kind of briefly touched on the fact that Munster are playing Edinburgh, but I think that it'll be...
Edinburgh gave Glasgow a good rattle last week.
Actually,
they were only 4 points off them, you know.
I don't understand how Edinburgh couldn't give Glasgow a rattle, because all the talk about Scottish rugby, anything that's positive about Scottish rugby has been talked about, is about people talking about Glasgow and how they're going. It must be very galling for the Edinburgh players and the
they're
Edinburgh
having a
team.
huge clear out at the end of the season.
Yeah.
11 guys
11 players leaving. Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that they had a right rattle at Glasgow. The thing about Edinburgh is we said it before. Will they give a shit when Munster come to town? Maybe the change of venue will suit them.
I think it has to suit you. Like, if you're playing in front of 5,000 in Murrayfield, like, you cannot get up for that game.
Yeah.
If you're playing 5,000 in Bermure's ground, or probably only about 3,000 at it, but
yeah.
I think the capacity is only 3
a full house of everybody.
But a full
right
house
on the
is
pitch,
going to
yeah.
be a good atmosphere, and you know, it could be lads playing for contracts. You don't know.
The thing about it is, though, Munster will probably win at least one of their last 2 games, and if they do that, I think they're pretty clear in third place. And even if they win both of their last 2 games, I still think they're in third place, because they're not going to catch Glasgow, and they're not going to catch us.
Well, they're only a point behind Glasgow.
Yeah, but
Glasgow
Glasgow
have
have
much
2
easier
Italian
going,
teams. Like, you know, they're quite likely to
and
get.
have hit form at the right time.
Glasgow are quite likely to get at least 9 points. You know, they might get 4 in Treviso, but they're definitely going to get 5 at home to Zebre. So that's 9 points. Munster will need 10 to catch them.
Yeah.
In fact, no, they won't, because Glasgow will have more wins, so they can't catch them. If the only way they can catch them is if they score 10 points and Glasgow score 8. So that's just not going to happen. They're probably not going to catch us because we've got Edinburgh at home. So they're not going to get at home Munster. But you know, as long as they win one match, they'll probably end up in third. So if they win this weekend, they can even lose to Ulster, and the Ulster won't catch them, depending on how many points they get against us and yada yada. But they could, if Ulster win this weekend, they could end up playing Munster for 3rd and 4th place, as to who comes to Glasgow and who comes to Leinster. So
yeah,
I'd rather
shall
avoid
see.
Munster as much as possible. Because in
they're going to be hurting after that game.
put
knockout
more
rugby,
bums on seats.
knockout rugby, you don't want to be playing Munster. I'd take Ulster every day of the week rather than Munster. Not because Ulster are a worse team or because Munster are a better team or vice versa, because just as I've always said, and I'm probably boring people who've heard me say it before, the Munster-Leinster games exist out of the real-time space-time continuum.
Yeah, they're serious derby, all right.
Yeah. I mean, like, you can just see, like, especially say Treviso against Glasgow, like, there's an exodus of players leaving Treviso as well, and you know, and I was just looking today, and some of the clubs have announced some of the departures, and it's sickening to see so many of the better players in the Pro 12 drifting off, you know, and there's a good few after.
Not good for the league.
there's a good few, even there's a few guys that I would have thought would have hung around in Glasgow are leaving as well, you know, and they're going off for a few bob down south.
Yeah.
I think that Italy will surprise us all in terms of what they do. They are the richest union in Europe. They're the biggest union in Europe in terms of population. They have the fewest number of teams to run. You know, they could go out and splash 30 or 40 million, not a bother on them. They have that kind of money, you know.
Will they?
Will they?
We shall
It's funny
see.
because when it was back in the old days of amateurs and back in the mid 90s,
Yeah,
They were the
they
ones
did
paying
that.
the money, yeah.
and they used to they kept most of the Australian lads still playing rugby union.
Checker.
You know, well,
For
No,
example.
no, they did.
like Willie Offengawi and Lina and all
And
these
Campo.
and Campese, these guys would have made a lot.
The only
could
guy-
have made a lot of money by staying in Australia and switching to league, but they didn't. They went to
The only
Italy.
guys in the Treviso backline back then who weren't superstar Wallabies were superstar All Blacks. You know, that was JK played there. Craig Innes played. Like lots of guys played there. So it's not the first time. I think Italy. They've been quite clever about what they've done. They've got their £3 million back.
Yeah.
and proper
you know.
order too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was.
They've got fractionally less than us out of the, but they've less teams.
They've less teams. So, but they're still getting.
They've
their
less than
increase.
Scotland though.
I think
Those
Italy
are the same
will
teams.
come back, and I think next year we'll be surprised at how good Treviso in particular are. I think that the clear out isn't entirely one that they're regretting.
Well, you know, you talk about Italy having so much money, but can really anyone match the French clubs and the mega money that they've got?
I think it's a bit of a misnomer. It's about how we can't compete with the French clubs. Yes, they have huge budgets, but they also have huge overheads. I mean, we talk about Toulon, we say their budget is 30 million. They have to pay for however many players they have on their books, including Espoirs, probably 60 players, all their administration, all their marketing, everything has to come out of that budget. A vast number of our players aren't on our budget. They're on they're on the IRFU's books. On top of that, even if we had 100 million, we wouldn't be able to go out and sign anyone we like. We're limited in the number of players we can sign, and we're limited in the type of players we can sign. So to a certain extent, within those limits, we don't need that kind of money. All we need to be able to do is, it's like they said, all we have to do is get lucky once. And Ireland has got lucky a number of times. You look at the quality players, Christian Cullen, Dougie Howlett, Rocky Elsom, Brad Thorne, John Afoe, Johan Muller, Ruben Pinar, Connacht with Clark and Bundyaki. You know, the very best players don't always go follow the money. They follow, you
The
know,
glory.
It's a lifestyle
they follow their
choice.
profession. Yeah, exactly. There's a lifestyle choice and they're
Dougie Howlett,
professional.
was the leading All Black scorer, one of the highest capped All Blacks at the time, and he chose Munster. And I'm sure he could have got a lot more money elsewhere, whether it was in Japan, whether it was in France, or even in England. And he didn't. He chose to come to Munster. And in fact, I believe he's remained here.
Yeah, he's still there.
You know,
yeah.
living in Cork, and that was a lifestyle choice that he chose, that he wanted to bring up a family or whatever. In
Well, if you
Ireland.
mention lifestyle, you know, we were all in Toulon there recently, you know.
It's
The
pretty
sun on
good.
your back, it's not exactly a dump,
true enough.
you know what I mean?
But the other side of that is, I mean,
have you looked at the weather here lately? If you're
we
coming from South Africa, Australia, even New Zealand,
but we actually look after our foreign players quite well as looking
We
after
do.
our national players.
you do.
I mean, Issa Nasiwa has mentioned about, like, when he came over, he expected to be having to be
Rallied.
played every week, always playing, always, and he said he couldn't believe that he was being rested in terms of.
Well, he wasn't that much, really, was he?
He wasn't, but he was rested as much as he needed to be rested. Whereas in France, he would have been. I don't think he would have been flogged because the squads they have are so
Well,
huge.
the
that
money
they can
now, they
afford to.
don't have to flog them anymore unless
But-
there's injuries, like in Johnny's case.
If we had 100 million quid, we couldn't spend it because we don't need to spend it. We're not looking for 30 players.
Mhm.
We're looking for maybe in terms of that top budget, those top fuel guys. We're only looking for 2 or 3.
But you also have to sort of.
And so just one other thing is
We won't
that
be allowed
we-
sign
we
them
have-
anyway.
yeah, we won't be allowed to sign them. But the other thing we have is that we actually have a production line.
That's exactly my point. If you look at like Ireland and how popular rugby has got in the last number of years, and the quality of kids that are coming through, whether it's through the academy or even a bit below that through the schools level,
And
the high-
through the youths. The youths is a massively untapped resource that's only now beginning to come online.
and the level of professionalism that particularly Leinster schools, and I presume Ulster schools as well, and the quality that it's coming through the academy, that now we're actually starting to we don't have enough places within the playing squad for a lot of these guys
Yeah,
coming
well-
through. So they've got like the two lads going to Bristol, or there's a rake of them that are playing.
Yeah.
There's even a few of them have gone over, maybe with Jackson's influence, have gone over to France because there's no opportunity for them here.
Well, that's it. We actually kind of produce too many players for our own good.
Yeah.
But you see, that's the thing. I mean, your Toulons, Toulouses, whatever, are actually coming to Ireland looking to sign players. We're not going to them looking to sign their young players or their because they don't have them. So they have to. This is where the quality is in terms of players we're producing, and Wales indeed as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
Wales have unearthed a lot
lost,
of talent.
Wales have lost all those star players, but Wales produced all those star players in the first place, and you can see the guys behind them. I mean,
Yeah.
they've had some successful under-20 teams in recent years coming up to fill in the void. So
There's also a lot of guys in teams like the Dragons, and a lot of the backs in the Dragons are great young players, and all these really young guys.
Saracens or
And
Scarlets as well. sorry.
Antonetti, yeah.
Scarlets too,
Yeah.
yeah. They all seem to be backs though. And Dragons, Scarlets, Cardiff seem to be signing
Well,
a
it was
lot
a
of.
great number 8. Was he number 8 for playing for Cardiff?
Ospreys.
Ospreys.
Yeah,
yeah.
superb.
Oh yeah, the red-headed lad.
We see that's it. We're not trying
Dan
to compete
Baker.
with the Toulouses and the Toulons and the whatever for the 30 players they're looking for. We're just looking for 2 or 3, and we have the money for that. We
let's-
can't afford that.
And let's say we need to go into the market to find a replacement for O'Driscoll, and there isn't someone coming through to, there's no one going to be ever going to properly replace him. But if they are looking for a world class number 13, that's all that they're interested in. They don't need to go and sign 2 props in a second row and
Yeah.
a number of
Not
back.
anymore.
a back row or set up an
Yeah.
academy in Fiji or anything like that. We don't but we don't have those overheads.
What's it they call it? Toa Saracens.
Yeah.
They have a Toa Saracens, which is the Saracens rugby team in Samoa.
You see, we don't have those overheads that they do. So that they might have a budget of 30 million, but 25 million of it is bunked away on everything on stuff we don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we needed to, we could go. We signed Rocky Elsom, we signed CJ van der Linde,
Well, the work.
we signed Dougie Howlett, we signed John Afoa. The money's there. All you have to do is prove that you need the player. And in fairness, the IRFU will go out and let you get the player.
Yeah,
Change your tune, Dave.
No, I haven't. You see, because we're into a new paradigm now with this new super duper rugby hey ho jolly good fellows cup. So we don't
that's the
know.
short name, is it?
Yeah, we don't know what the ground is going to be like. Traditionally, the IRFU haven't really cared once we got to a home quarter final because that was the payday. Success after that was nice. It grew the game, rotated the game, but ultimately, in terms of their finances, the home quarter final was the most important thing. Now you've got a situation where Irish teams are getting home semi-finals in the Pro 12 as well, which is a big earner. Those games are pretty much they're certainly not in terms of popularity or in terms of how they attack the public consciousness, but in terms of filling the coffers, which pays for the next generation of players. Those games are probably more valuable than
And also,
Heineken Cups.
you got to also factor in the Joe Schmidt bounce.
Yeah.
A couple of seasons ago, the IRFU were struggling. They couldn't get away their tickets or 10-year tickets. They had to take a loan out and all the rest of it. Now, a bit of success in the national team, and Joe Public is actually interested in rugby again, as opposed to just the diehards. And now probably might even put a tenner on a ticket. I don't know. Hopefully they don't, but they could do.
They did that before, and it kind of went
At
tits
the
up.
height of the recession, though,
Yeah.
in fairness.
It's hard to know what the I still think the RFU have a fairly limited view in terms of what they consider success. I think they consider success to be the home quarter final, and anything after that is
Well, they don't budget for anything more than that.
no. And I think and quite right, and they're quite. I mean, that's why there's
That's 'cause
yeah,
the
that's why the
They're not
RFU is
Newcastle.
that's
or
why the
Leeds.
RFU is fiscally responsible.
The IR or the ERC take most of the semi and the final anyway. So
Yeah.
the home quarter final is where the Wonga is.
There's no money in winning the Heineken Cup. The money is when you sell the win. That's where the money is. But the actual, the prize money, the TV money, the attendance money, it's not up to much. I mean, Pro 12 is just as much. So we're in a situation now where, everybody's talking about, but to go back to the original, everybody's talking about we can't compete with the French clubs with their huge budgets. That's quite correct. We can't. But the other side of that is we're not trying to, and we don't want to.
Well, anyway, thanks a million, lads, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.